looking at me.
Can I have your attention, please? Yes, hi, Wanda Sykes here. You ever think about all the nicknames we have for breasts? Boobs, tatas, the girls, chesticles, bubbies. Heck, you might even have your own nickname for them. And yet, even though they get so much attention, they're still so ignored when it matters most. What's up with that? Well, on February 9th, tune in to see why I'm talking so much about breasts and visit yourattentionplease.com to learn more.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
And a good afternoon, everybody. This is indeed the Michael K. Show. We thank you for joining us on this Thursday, February 6th, 2025. You and me until 3. And at 3 o'clock, it's the NBA trade deadline. That's it. That's the last moment that you can make a trade. There's been a lot of action so far. We're keeping an eye on that. Obviously, the Super Bowl is on Sunday, so we'll break some of that down as well. But we start the show with the signing last night of Pete Alonso to a 2-year deal, which is essentially a 1-year deal. The only way it becomes a 2-year deal is if Pete Alonso suffers a terrible injury this year, then he doesn't opt out, and then it would average out to $27 million a year. But if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to become a free agent. So if he doesn't get hurt and he does opt out, the contract is for $30 million for 1 year. And I got to tell you what, I've gone back and forth on this. I really have. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if we were just led down a primrose path of outrage and leverage attempts, things like that. But $30 million for Pete Alonso? There's been only one first baseman in the history of the game that made more per year than Pete Alonso is going to make this year. And that's Miguel Cabrera, who's going to the Hall of Fame. His contract, which was an albatross for the last 4 or 5 years of it, averaged $31 million a year. Well, what the Mets did after holding firm, they were going to give him $68 to $70 million for 3 years. That was it. That was the limit. So they looked at him as a $23 million a year player. Then they gave him 30 for this year. Now you can say, well, the Mets won because they only essentially have him for 1 year. That's one way to look at it. The other way is Alonso got $30 million for playing this year. He's the highest paid first baseman in the game. Vladimir Guerrero will make $28.5 this year. Bryce Harper, who signed the contract when he was an outfielder, will make $27.5. Freddie Freeman, $27 million a year. Matt Olson, $22. And Christian Walker, $20. Of all of those, they're all better than Alonso except maybe Walker. Every single one of them is better. Now I know salaries go up, contracts go up as time expires, as time goes on. So, but coming off a bad year, he got a $10 million raise? He made $20.5 million last year. And had a subpar season where all of his metric numbers are going down. And he was able to wrangle a $30 million contract out of the Mets. So in that sense, he wins. Now, the way that he loses is that 2 years ago in 2023, when Billy Epler was the GM of the Mets, he turned down a 7-year, $158 million deal. So that averages out to 22, a little under $23 million a year that he turned down. So last year would have been the first year of that contract. So he made $20.5 last year, and this year he's going to make $30. So he's up to $50.5 million in 2 years. So he has 5 more years to make $108 million. So what he's going to try to do is put together a great year and not falter under the pressure of the last year of a contract and see if there's anybody out there that's going to bite. Now, remember, though, that the coming off season, the top first baseman on the market is going to be Vlad Guerrero Jr. So every team is going to pursue him. So Alonso's best chance is to be the second choice for a team that wants Vlad Guerrero. But Vlad Guerrero is going to be 26 next year when he becomes a free agent. Pete Alonso is going to be 31. So the only way that Pete Alonso ends up looking good is if somewhere in the next 5 years he's able to secure $108 million. Maybe he will. But if you keep signing one-year deals, the older you get, you're not getting $30 million a year. I think the Mets want above and beyond. And I'm going to tell you what, Met fans, it's on you. I really believe there's no way that David Stearns would have given this guy $30 million for this upcoming season. No way. But the shouting you did at the amazing day at Citi Field, how you cried and moaned about it, he's a homegrown Met, I think that affected them. I really did. Now, one other thing. Hate to tell you this. They valued him only a certain amount. They needed him. Their lineup was kind of like, meh. Who was going to back up? Juan Soto. Mark Vientos? So we're all in on Mark Vientos after one good year. When he didn't even start the season with the team, Brett Beatty won the third base job out of spring training. Vientos showed me a lot last year, but you're ready to say he's the guy that would be backing up Juan Soto in the lineup. Yeah, I don't think that's a big-time lineup. Pete Alonso gives it length. So now you can keep Lindor at the leadoff spot. You got Alonso. You got Alonso backing up Soto. And you could make everything else move down from there. Now, by giving him a $30 million contract, I think the Mets payroll is at like $328. So the Cohen tax is $301. So by giving Pete Alonso this contract, you're $27 million over the tax. And the tax, because you're a multiple offender, a repeat offender, is 110%. So this contract, with the Mets' largesse of, okay, we'll give them 1 year, you know what it cost them? The contract's going to cost them $57 million. 30 for what they're paying him, $27 million approximately for the tax penalty. You're paying Pete Alonso that? Now, you can say, well, maybe they'll get under the cap or the tax before the season starts. Well, you tell me how they're going to do that. Because even if they're able to move the entirety of Starling Marte's contract, what is that, 18, 19 million? They're still over the tax. So they have the second highest payroll in all of baseball. And can you honestly, Met fans, please call in. I want to talk about this because I'm at a crossroads with this. I'm not quite sure how to view what they did. 1-800-919-3776. Are they the best team in the National League East? Forget about the National League. We know the Dodgers are the best team on paper in the National League. But are they better than the Braves? Are they better than the Braves? Because I'll tell you what, Fangraphs playoff odds came out today. The Dodgers are at 98.2% to make the playoffs. Atlanta is 93%. The Yankees are 71.9%. The Phillies, 71.5%. Arizona, 61.2%. The Texas Rangers, 58.2%. And the Mets, 57.5%. They're not even the best team in their own division. And according to Fangraphs, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the fifth best team in the National League in terms of playoff odds. And that includes making the playoffs as a wild card. So all this talk about fiduciary responsibility. How? Where? Look, by the way, look at your starting rotation. You're depending on Kodai Senga? How many games did he pitch last year? Sean Manaea? No more Luis Severino, had a real good year for you. Montas? That's not a great starting staff, and it's not a great bullpen. So how is their payroll $327 million? So I guess they're trying to get closer to at least getting 89 to 90 wins, which might assure them of a playoff, and anything could happen, as was proven last year. Because what they did as they were waiting for Pete Alonso to actually make up his mind, what? They added Jesse Winker? They brought him back? What's the major move they made? Harrison Bader goes. He ends up signing with the Twins. Jose Siri can't hit. He's a great defender. You still haven't brought back Iglesias. So getting Soto was great. Absolutely great. I'm sorry, it was. There's no other way to look at it. Don't let anybody spin it any other way. Getting Soto is brilliant. I don't care if in 8 years you're going to regret that contract. The next 8 years, they're going to be golden. That's how good this guy is. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let Yankee fans play the hater. Bottom line is, he's a great hitter, bad fielder, bad base runner. But he is an unbelievable player with a high WAR. So he gives value to the team. They paid top dollar for a top player who's going to the Hall of Fame. But you tell me how a team with pedestrian pitching at best, a pedestrian bullpen at best, is a $328 million team. That's not money well spent. That's not the reputation of David Stearns. So to recap, getting Alonso for essentially 1 year is great because he's 30 years old. Great. But boy, did you pay a high premium for that 1 year. You think he's a $23 million a year player. You gave him $7 million more for 1 year. And he has insurance against a really bad injury because he'll get $27 million next year if he doesn't opt out. That is a lot of money to spend on a team that right now, today, as we enter today, the Mets are 57.5% chance of making the playoffs. That's not money well spent. The Dodgers at 380. And you know what that bought them? A 98.2% chance of making the playoffs. I don't know because they were talking tough. The most they'd give him is 68 to 70 for 3 years. They supposedly offered him at the end with Steve Cohen and Stearns and Boris and Alonso met down in Tampa as Cohen was going down to the owners' meeting. And they didn't come away with a deal, but they had the framework of one. And I think the Mets went up to 3 years, $71 million. And Alonso said no to that. I'll take the 2 years with the $30 million for Pete Alonso. A one-dimensional player. The dimension is a big one. He can hit a lot of home runs. Not a great first baseman. Clogs up the bases. What are we doing? I don't care if it's for 1 year. $30 million for that player is a hell of a lot of money. A hell of a lot of money. Good for the Mets. They get some length in their lineup. But I'm telling you what, they paid Maserati prices for essentially a Nissan. Not a bad car. Nissan's a nice car. Top-level Nissan is really good. Not a Maserati. They're paying Maserati prices for a Nissan. Good deal? I don't know. Oh, you can say, well, it's not. They didn't buy the car. It's a lease. Oh, okay. They're leasing Maserati prices for a Nissan. Or for you older listeners, a Datsun. 1-800-919-3776. All right, let's talk. 1-800-919-3776. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go back to the phones, or let's go to the phones at all. And let's go to Luca in Flushing.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Love you.
Hey, Luca.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Love the show.
Thanks, man.
Love the new time slot for you. I actually called in a few times to you when you guys are still when you're still with Peter and Don, and I said, hey, I don't think the Mets should re-sign this guy. And you know, you came back with, well, we're going to find a 40 home run a year kind of player. But look, it doesn't matter at this point. I think you're right. I think Don actually made fun of me for saying the Mets are. This is kind of similar to the Cespedes situation where the Mets are kind of holding their ground, but you know, they might cave into the Mets wanting to bring back a player they like. And I don't think they cave necessarily, but I don't think, like you said, it's a great situation for them, or it's even a good contract. I mean, it's too much, and we're kind of falling back into just signing players to sign them. I don't think it's a great contract, but at least it's for a year, and that's the way I have to look at it. At least it's just for a year.
That's the positive, Luca, and we thank you for the phone call. That's the positive. It's just for 1 year and you get out of it. Unless he gets hurt. Then it's for 2 years. But I think that this is a classic. They could say they don't, and I've said this before. You fall victim to what the fans desire, and you get burned. You'll end up sitting with the fans. The Yankees are living that right now with DJ LeMahieu. Never should have given him a 6-year contract. Now these last 2 years are an absolute albatross. That's why they're actually considering playing him at third base, because they still owe him $15 million this year and $15 million next year. Albatross. Mets didn't want to sign Cespedes. Their fans were clamoring for it. Okay, what'd you get? A wild boar. That's what you got. Never, listen, you have to respect the fans because they're your customer. Never let them build your team. And I'm going to tell you why a lot of fans are phony, too. I'm going to tell you why. If Pete Alonso doesn't hit that home run off of Devin Williams and the Mets get knocked out in that third game against Milwaukee, there wouldn't be that much of a clamor to bring back Pete Alonso. Now, I give Pete Alonso credit. That wasn't the only big hit he had in the postseason. He had 4 home runs in the postseason. Had a really good postseason and a really pedestrian regular season. Really pedestrian regular season. Let's go to Steve in the Jersey Shore. Steve. Guys, I don't have control of my board, so you're going to have to call that up. Hey, Steve.
Hey, what's up, brother? Real quick, I just want to say, as a Mets fan, you did a hell of a call in that London series with Torrens and the double play. I just want you to know.
Thank you, man.
Flowers.
That means a lot.
Yeah,
I know a lot of Met fans are upset hearing the Yankee announcer calling their game.
Yeah, I couldn't believe our guys weren't there, but man, like for a crazy ending like that, I was telling all my Yankee Yankee buddies how you killed it.
Thank you.
But dude, I could honestly, I could listen to you talk baseball all day. You said a lot of valid points with Alonso. We couldn't. Hey, he was an idiot for not signing that a couple of years ago. If he would have got his money, everyone would have been happy. Blah blah. But I think the Mets are more in the driver's seat now with this 2-year contract. Yeah, he has the 1-year option, but dude, we cannot afford to lose Pete, especially with we don't really have like you were saying, the lineup is not as powerful. Under 60% to even make the playoffs. The pitching's iffy. You got we added Minter. But it's just not as promising as we added Soto, of course, that's amazing, but we cannot afford to lose Pete. But now he just needs to hope that he has a good season.
Here's the deal, though, Steve, and we thank you for the call. With the pressure of a contract hanging over him, he had one of his worst years last year. He's got that pressure of a contract hanging again, and he's going to go into a free agent market at 31. And again, let me break it down. The Mets won because it's just a 1-year deal. And Alonso won because he gets $30 million for this season. When no first baseman in baseball gets that kind of money. Not one. The best ones, not one. Vlad Guerrero, $28.5 million. Think about the difference in those two players. Let's go to Mike in the Bronx. Mike.
Michael, I am in the Bronx looking out my window at Walsh Library right now.
Oh, I love it.
I teach in the school right across the street. I've been listening to your show for over a decade, the other show and everything, and I feel like pretty consistently you've been down the middle, even though you're the Yankees guy. This is the most anti-Mets I've ever heard you. It's not a good look for you. You are so negative today. Everybody else is so happy about this deal and so positive. You're the first negative word I've heard about it.
But let's go over it, Mike, because you sound like a reasonable person. You can certainly disagree with me. They have a $328 million payroll, and their chances of making the playoffs are 57.5%. That's not money well spent, Mike. That's not being a hater. That's being reality. That's not me saying their percentage. That's Fangraphs.
Right, but what would you have them do with that money otherwise? Who's the other first baseman out there they should have spent that money on? Or the other player you think they should have spent that money on other than Pete? Because it's just Steve's money. It's not it's not. I don't care about the money part unless they could have spent it somewhere else. Where else should they have spent it?
Well, I mean, it's already gone already. I mean, you could have gone a number of ways. You could have signed Bregman to play third base and move Vientos to first. Now, one of the positives of bringing Pete back is that in his second year, Vientos doesn't have to learn a new position in spring training. I think that's great. So, again, there's a lot of positives. And one of the main positive for Met fans is who their owner is. He doesn't give a damn about the tax. He doesn't care about spending $328 million. He doesn't care about having a tax bill of $27 million. It wouldn't have had a tax bill if he didn't bring back Pete Alonso. He doesn't care. Met fans should revel in that after most of their lives having the Wilpons who did care because they had limited resources, especially after the Madoff situation. There are no limited resources with Steve Cohen, but I feel that we went down a path of the theatrics of Steve Cohen saying, I don't like the way this is going. It's the most difficult negotiation, worse than the Soto one, and then he plops $30 million in his lap. So you won by having him sign a 1-year deal, but you lost by overpaying him. I'm sorry if it comes off with me as a troll, but, Mike, what you just said, I've been doing this for 23 years. I try to call it right down the middle. If I don't feel strongly about something, and I'm not saying the Mets made a mistake, I'm not saying they made a mistake because it made their lineup better. What I am saying, if you can't see it this way, I'm sorry if you can't see it this way, it's a massive overpay for 1 year for Pete Alonso. Massive. Met fans, you know what? Most people that do talk shows in this town, I'm sorry to tell you, most of them are Met fans. They're giddy Met fans. So they love the fact that they got what they've been clamoring for. Oh, yay! Steve Cohen, listen, we wanted Alonso back and we got him. That's what you're hearing. I'm calling it right down the middle. Again, most people on the air in this town are Met fans. Don't know why it works out that way, but that's the way it is. And a lot of the writers are Met fans. So they're going to celebrate the fact that the fans got their way. Let's see how it works out for you. Bold strategy, Cotton. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Ian in Nassau. What's up, Ian?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good. What's up, buddy?
Good. Listen, I understand where you're coming from about Pete. Is it an overpay for him? I agree. Yes, it's an overpay, but you can't. I understand you can only look at it as, hey, it's 1 year, 30 million, it's overpaid. There's such a broader picture of what it actually is.
All right, tell me what it is. I'm interested.
Options?
Tell me.
What are other options if we don't sign him? Right? You could say, I listen to you. Okay, Bregman. Well, if you're going to sign Bregman, it's the same deal as if you're overpaying for Pete at $30 million, you're going to hit the tax. We signed Bregman, we're going to hit the overtax as well. We had no other options. Pete was our option, and at the end of the day, it's a 1 year deal. It's a very expensive 1 year deal, but it is only effectively a 1 year deal, and that puts us in a position for the future. Because it's only 1 year, to be able to make moves. We didn't sign him for 3, 4, 5 years for a bunch of money and would have been a crazy overpay for a lot of years. It is a 1 year overpay. I completely agree with that. But at the end of the day, it's about the year, right? We're going to hit the luxury tax no matter what. We've hit it repeatedly. We have the richest owner in baseball. The luxury tax to us wasn't a thing. We're going to pay it repeatedly. But for 1 year, this was the move, in my opinion.
Well, I can't disagree with you, Ian. I think you're absolutely right. Because, as I said, I opened the show saying I'm kind of torn about this deal. The 1 year is a major win for the Mets, and the $30 million is a major win for Alonso. Now, he wanted multiple years. He fired his agent that negotiated a 7-year, $158 deal and hired Scott Boras because he thought there were more riches out there. I think he was dreaming of an Aaron Judge sort of contract. So he didn't get anything close to that, anything close to it. But for 1 year, he's the highest paid first baseman in baseball, second highest paid first baseman in the history of the majors. Massive overpay. But again, it's just for 1 year. But you're not getting out from under it. You're not getting out from under it. Because if he leaves after 1 year, you're going to sign Vlad Guerrero, and Vlad Guerrero wants $40 million a year, $50 million a year. Who knows what he's going to get? So you are forever over that luxury tax. Forever. And there was talk about they wanted, Steve Cohen lost so much money the last couple of years. And last year was tough because he's paying half of the salary of Verlander and Scherzer and all that. That comes off the book. And you still have the second highest payroll in all of the game, but you only have a 57.5% chance of making the playoffs according to fan graphs. How did you spend the money well? How? You got Lindor, who's a star. Flat-out star. You've got Alonso at 30. You've got Soto at 46, 47. Where's the big money being paid? How does it get to 328? But it does. You got Edwin Diaz making $20 million a year. But these other things sprinkled here and there, and Nimmo and Winker, and somehow it's adding up to 328. Somehow that's not good enough to guarantee them a playoff spot, according to Fangraphs. You can't tell me that's money well spent. You can't. Atlanta has a much lower payroll. Their chance of making the playoffs are 93%, and they lost Max Fried. They lost Max Fried and Charlie Morton. And they're at 93% at a much lower rate. They didn't even go over any of the taxes. So who built the team better and more efficiently in terms of payroll? 1-800-919-3776. That's the deal. Maybe we'll get some clarity with our next guest coming up in just a moment. Our good friend from SNY, Andy Martino. Maybe he'll explain it to me like I'm a child. And I am. So stay tuned for that. Hey, it's Michael K. I love when I get to talk about PC Richard & Son. This has been my go-to store for years now. They're local, they're family-owned, and they truly care about their customers. And you know how I love to support our local businesses? And you should too. During the President's Day sale, save big on appliances from all the top brands, up to 40% off. In fact, the more you buy, the more you save, with up to $1,000 in additional savings on qualifying appliances. So do what I do and get to PC Richard & Son today.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
TaxAct knows filing taxes can be confusing, so we have live experts on hand who can help answer any questions you may have. Questions like, can I claim my SUV as my home office if I answer work emails in my car? If I adopted 12 dogs this year, can I list them as dependents? And, am I doing this right or am I doing this very, very wrong? Our experts have the answers to those questions and many others. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton bedding from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with airy blankets, cloud-like duvets, and breathable sheets. You'll experience pure comfort on night one and feel your bedding get softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first order at bollandbranch.com with code SPORTS15. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, Game Time is brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, because when it's game time, it's Tully time at 7 p.m. Devils are hosting the Golden Knights at the Prudential Center. At 6:30, a women's college basketball doubleheader tips off on ESPN TV. Number 5 UConn takes on Tennessee, followed by Stanford against number 3 ranked Notre Dame. Tullamore Dew, the original triple distilled, triple blended, triple cask matured Irish whiskey. Be sure to grab a Tullamore Dew. Try the new Tullamore Dew Honey during today's action. Glasses up to enjoying Tullamore Dew responsibly. All right, we're talking the Pete Alonso deal that came down last night, and one of our go-to guys. He's so great and so generous with his time when it comes to us, and that's Andy Martino of SNY. He joins us now. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good, Michael. How are you? I'm glad I finally got my off season, and oh wait, I'm flying to Florida on Monday.
Oh wow! Well, at least you get
That's
some
how it
hopefully
goes
good
nowadays
weather.
in this business.
That's
right. You're right. You know what? There are worse things.
Absolutely. All right, so I think I texted you this last night. Talk to me like I'm a child. I thought the Mets valued this guy at about $23 million a year, and he ends up with 30. And I know the benefit is a one-year deal, but they're paying. He's the highest-paid first baseman in baseball, and he's not nearly the best.
Yeah, well, fair question. You got me thinking about that too. So having followed all the twists and turns of this, first of all, on how they valued him, it's a little bit misleading, this oft-repeated offer that he had turned down that was supposedly $68 to $70 million, because which was a couple of weeks ago. Because in addition to that money, there was significant deferred money. So Alonso and Scott Boras could have claimed a higher number than 70 if they'd taken that deal. So that But that doesn't completely address your question, but that's one piece of context. And in terms of like the thought of the Mets capitulating on the price, I think the Mets would probably agree with you on that they never wanted to go to $30 million on any given year. And that was a hard compromise for them to make, especially after they legitimately pivoted away from Alonso a few weeks ago and spent his dollars on Jesse Winker, A.J. Minter, Ryan Stanek. They basically did a mini version of what the Yankees did after losing Soto, just spreading the money around.
Right.
So the payroll is now way higher than they wanted it to be. And on the other side of things, though, Michael, Alonso's side could be said to have significantly capitulated on years and total dollars of the kind of free agent they initially thought he was going to be value-wise. So significant concessions on one side on dollars and the other side on years, I would say.
I look at it this way, and I wonder if you agree with me. I think that what happened at the amazing day at Citi Field with the fans so strong in their support of Alonso and making Steve Cohen here, I think the fans pushed this over the finish line. Do you agree or not?
It's complex. I mean, I know that Cohen obviously cares about the fans, his customers being happy, and it's tough to get inside a guy's heart and soul to say how much that would have affected. But I will say it didn't affect them to the extent of lengthening their offer, improving their offer just to get something done. I mean, what also didn't change, Michael, was that the baseball people, David Stearns and his group, were always on Alonso as their first baseman for 2025. They just weren't on him for like a long-term deal. So the baseball people never changed their mind. We want Pete. They were telling their owner, but we'll walk away if it has to be more than a couple of years. That was always their stance, remained their stance. And I still believe that if Alonso hadn't been willing to accept a 2-year deal, or that he was also floated a 3-year deal the other day, if he weren't willing to do it this way, the Mets were going to walk away no matter what happened at the amazing day. Is Steve Cohen a human being? Take in that fan reaction and weigh it. What does Aaron Boone like to say? Baked into the cake or an ingredient in the stew or something like that? Sure, something like that. But I don't think it was pivotal.
Was there another offer for him out there, or did he have to accept this? Because, a 1-year deal for a guy who had bigger dreams and aspirations. Yeah. Was there anything out there with the Blue Jays or the Reds or the Angels?
Well, the Blue Jays was the most serious. They got really serious. The timeline's tough to remember now. Sometime in mid to late January, myself and a few others were reporting that they were advancing in talks with the Blue Jays, and that obviously didn't get consummated. Whether that was like dead, or could have been revived yesterday if Alonso had wanted it to, I couldn't tell you like how hard the Alonso camp's no was to Toronto, but they were getting there a while back. It didn't work out. There was talk yesterday in the negotiation of Alonso having another $30 million offer out there from another team. But I'll just say I can't independently verify that, and I don't know anyone else who can.
All right. So, I mean, one thing that Met fans have to rejoice about, Steve Cohen really doesn't care about money, because not only does he give Alonso $30 million, but that pushes him over the Cohen tax. So he's at 327, 328. So that means 27 of that is taxed at $110 million. So he's essentially paying about $57 million for this contract.
Yeah, and they actually calculate that number as higher, Michael, internally, because I believe that's the publicly available number, and it's close. But when teams look at it, they look at budgeted money for IL stuff and payroll stuff through the year, which is, I don't know, 5-10. Do you want to hold and reserve another 10 to 15 for the trade deadline in season additions? So they perceive their own payroll right now as like 330s, 340s, and they're not happy about that. That wasn't the idea. Stearns never had a hard budget, but they don't want to be paying that 110% tax, which definitely influences roster choices. Ryan Stanek at $4.5 million versus Kenley Jansen at 10 or 12. The choice they made was Stanek, because Jansen's 10 or 12 is what? I wasn't a math major, but like mid to high 20s, right? For Kenley Jansen. So these are all the things you're facing. They want to be under this number more often than they're over it, that highest Cohen tax threshold. But every year something seems to come up where they see a chance of what they see as improving their club. And you're right, Mets fans have to love that Cohen's not it's a soft line, but it's obviously not a hard line. And signing Alonso now, if Alonso opts in for 26, it's going to be really hard to get down close to that number, for another season. So they don't love that, but credit to them because, again, baseball ops is telling the owner we're a better team with Alonso. So it's like, okay, fine, spend the money. That's kind of how it felt.
Andy Martino of SNY is our guest. Now, I was talking about this in the open of the show, Andy. So you're telling me let's go for 330 because that's a nice round number. So the payroll's 330. Mm-hmm. So the latest Fangraphs playoff odds for 330 payroll, the second highest payroll in the game to the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. The Mets are at 57.5% to make the playoffs. The Dodgers are at 98.2%. So you can make the argument, Andy, that's not 330 well spent if your odds are only 57.5% to make the playoffs.
Well, when you think of it like that, sure. I always kind of roll my eyes at those Fangraph odds because I remember covering the Mets playoff chase last year, and like one day they had no shot because it's 9% or whatever, and then they win 3 games and it's 81%. You know how that is, and like I hate it when people ask me who's going to win the NL East or the AL East or that stuff because it's always like, well, I don't know who's going to get hurt, who's going to stay healthy, who's going to what's the trade deadline going to look like, who's going to have the magic and the vibes this year. So I guess I kind of shrug off odds and predictions. I take your point that they're not the Dodgers like on paper or even in reality, and they're spending a lot of money. But I guess I'm always like, let's see how the season plays out with all that stuff.
Well, I agree with you, but I do look at it this way. Forget about Fangraphs odds, okay? Their starting staff is pedestrian. Their bullpen is kind of pedestrian. So, I mean, there are a lot of question marks on the team with the second highest paid payroll in the game. And you said it was almost a miscalculation by them, Andy, because they thought that Alonso was gone and they spent Alonso's money, and then Alonso comes back at this huge number. I don't know. That doesn't seem like it was their plan.
No. Their plan, once Alonso turned them down a couple weeks ago, and there was, I think I called it a pivot the day I reported it. That you're right. The plan was then to start spending on the Jesse Winkers and the Minters and whatever. He did not slam the door on Alonso, but it was not ideal money-wise to have it play out this way. But of course, you could argue it was more ideal roster-wise because now they have all these players, right? Winker's a nice addition. Obviously, Minter's a guy they need in their bullpen. I agree with you, Michael. They have what the Mets bullpen has going for them is some internal depth and some interesting arms. But really what they have going for them is David Stern's reputation from Milwaukee of finding good pitchers and like unheralded guys that step up, because I'm not seeing it on paper either with the pitching staff. I think it's hard to see it as a strength of the team. So you go, well, I guess they know what they're doing. They hit on a bunch of guys last year. Stearns did it in Milwaukee. So that's where I'm at with it too. And right now, slotting Alonso into that lineup, obviously it's a formidable offense, especially the first 4 or 5 guys. And they don't on paper have the pitching staff to match that offense in quality. I completely agree with that. So, that's going to be the question mark for them for sure. It's a championship level lineup, you could argue, and doesn't look like a pitching staff to match it. But I guess they know what they're doing. We'll see.
That's the way to bet. And I do also wonder though, Andy, if Pete doesn't hit that home run against Devin Williams, if there was going to be such an outcry to bring him back. I mean, I think Met fans fell back in love after he had a miserable season.
It was an expensive home run. It was a wonderful moment. I agree, because I felt, and it's hard as a reporter on the inside kind of to have a pulse on the fan base maybe completely. We're like kind of running in different circles. But what I felt like from the press box view and what you hear from people generally was that Mets fans are kind of down on Alonso, like you said, the year that he had, just some stuff adding up, making the All-Star team over his more deserving teammates because of the home run derby and things like that. It was like, all right, Pete. And then in that game in Milwaukee, Remember he tripped over his bat earlier in the game, and I was like,
Yep.
oh, geez, this is ending, ugly for Pete, which is too bad. Pete's got a good heart. It's too bad. But if he made an out in that inning rather than hit the home run against Devin Williams, yeah, I agree with you. It's totally different dynamic with the fan pressure. And yeah, you could say, I mean, I guess it wouldn't influence David Stearns' recommendation that they're a slightly better team with him, because that's all based on models and stuff, but certainly sentiment would have been different.
I'll tell you what, final thing, Andy. I've had some interaction with Pete. He's always really a pleasant dude. You've had more interaction with him. So you knowing him better than I do you think he comes into the season ticked off because that long-term mega money deal wasn't there, or is he just going to be Pete?
Fascinated by that question, Michael, and so were the Mets. I have been around him since he was a kid. He's a nice person. I agree with you. Very prideful, as he should be, as these guys all need to be. I think the 30 number helps. And if you're Steve Cohen and you have that money, maybe that last couple of million is an investment in Pete's morale, right?
Right.
You can hold your head high about the AAV at least. And so that's their hope. He's an emotional guy and takes a lot of pride in what he does and thinks of himself as a big, big star in the game. And he is a star. So I think I'm going to be really interested to see the choreography of this whole thing. Is there going to be a press conference? Is it late enough where he's just going to talk at spring training and just try to get this over with once and then just carry on as usual? I don't know. That's like, I can't wait to get a look at him and see how he seems. I think you're asking the key question.
Well, safe travels down to Florida. Thank you for always helping us out, and we'll talk to you soon, Andy.
Thanks, Michael. Anytime.
All right, that's Andy Martino of SMY. We'll come back, take more of your phone calls. NBA trade deadline is approaching an hour and 15 minutes from now. So at 3 o'clock, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg should have all the moves that have been made or will be made, and they'll break it down, and we'll break it down as well. Maybe the offseason, but every season is Bigelow tea season. Now, you know I'm picky about what I drink, especially in days I have a show. One of the first things I do each day is reach for a mug full of Bigelow tea. I love the different flavor options, and it's perfect for someone who makes his living behind a microphone. Want to know what keeps me going? Look no further than my cup of Bigelow tea next to me in the studio. So grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. Bigelow tea, the official hot tea of the New York Yankees.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Grainger knows space at your facility is limited. As a maintenance specialist, you only have so many spots for backup products in your inventory roster, which means space on your bench comes at a premium. Well, when it comes to breadth and depth, Grainger's got you covered. They've got over 1 million industrial-grade products. Plus, fast delivery helps reduce the inventory you need to keep on hand, freeing up space and capital while giving your operation a winning edge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by a local branch.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
The big narratives that I always hear is that the Mets have not had any lifelong only Met players. You know, Don used to have that rant with Ed Kranepool. Tom Seaver was traded, played on several teams, Red Sox, White Sox, went back to the Mets. Pete Alonso is not playing his whole career with the Mets either. There's no way. There's no way. He's just not. So they signed him for 1 more year. He's going to be 31. He's eventually going to sign somewhere else. They don't value him long term. So he's not going to retire at 34. He wants to play till he's 37, 38. He's definitely going to be he's not going to be a lifetime Met. What's going to happen because of signing this deal, he's going to get the 27 home runs he needs to tie Strawberry, the 28 to break the record for most home runs by a Met. Great for him. But if you think Pete Alonso is going to finish his career at only having played for the Mets, you're wrong. You're dead wrong. So I'm in the car yesterday after this show, and I'm listening to Don Hahn and Rosenberg, and they had a comedian on who's appearing, I guess, at the theater at Madison Square Garden. I felt so bad for Don. So Don was going to the Garden yesterday for the Ranger game. Big win for the Rangers, beating the Bruins 3-2. And so Don said something like he had 7-year-old twins, and the comedian said, well, how old are the kids from your first marriage? And then Don said, well, how old do you think I am? And the comedian said, 64. And you could hear the life just drain out of Don, because that's how old I turned on Sunday. Don's going to be 57 on February 13th. When the guy said 54, I felt like Don got kicked in the cube so hard that they were inside his body. I felt for him. I really did. And I think the clip is on social media if you want to listen to it, but I felt so sorry for my friend. I think it's the gray hair that does him in. If he didn't have gray hair, you wouldn't think he was in his 60s. And he's not. He's 57. But to hear the comedian say that, awful. Awful. I felt for my friend. I really did. And now I'm reveling in it. 1-800-919-3776. We'll go to Henry in South Carolina. Henry. Hello,
Michael.
Henry.
Good to hear. Michael, good to hear from you again. And I listened to that bit with Chris DiStefano and on Don Hahn and Rosenberg, and yes, the absolute life just plummeted.
So sad.
It bottomed out of Don, and I am a casual fan of Chris DiStefano, so I have a little bit of context for how he delivers things, and he's painfully just not perceptive of things, and it hurts to see you get aimed toward a person we know and love.
Yes, Chris DiStefano was the comedian. Thank you, Henry.
That is the one. That is the one. So if you don't mind me opining on this Alonso thing, you had a caller on a moment ago. He said, it's just Cohen's money. That kind of killed me because, for context, Yankee fan here, lived through the dynasty and the years that we've been toiling and trying to get back up top. And listen, man, it's not just – it seems to me like, listen, fans don't have to care about how – the sausage is made. They just want to have their team. They want to have the players they want. They want to win. I completely respect that. However, man, you have to be conscious of how these things are done, because pretty soon, if Cohen keeps acquiescing to the fans, I'd hate for them to start sounding like Yankee fans, and that would be painful for me. I mean, you got to care how it's done. I'm looking at a spring training and an opening day potentially with DJ LeMahieu, as our third baseman, and then you gotta sit and wonder why that is. Well, that's because that's how these deals are made, and you can get stuck, with players.
I also laugh. I laugh at this, Henry. And I thank you for the call. When they say it's just Steve Cohen's money, Steve Cohen is not a good businessman. He's a great businessman. So he's gone from nothing to having $22 billion as his personal fortune. That money is, he's lost a lot of money on the Mets the last couple of years. He has. So all of a sudden, ticket prices are going to go up. They just are. Concession prices are going to go up. The owners are not going to just continue to reach into their pocket deeper and deeper and lose money. It will be passed along to you. And then you'll complain why the tickets are so high, and you'll complain why the chicken bucket is so high. The money is going to be passed down to the consumer. That's the way it works in every single business in the world. This is not a not-for-profit. And for Steve Cohen, a great businessman, you know what the Mets have been? A not-for-profit organization. He's going to eventually change that. He is going to eventually change it. Hey, it's Superbox Bonanza 6. Here's your final chance to grab a box for the big game. Be caller number 7 right now at 888-987-ESPN for a chance to win $250 in the first and third quarters, $500 at halftime, and a final score payout of $1,000. It's all brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, Sloman Security, and Security Dodge. Shop 24/7 at securitydodge.com during their President's Day sales event. When we come back, more of your phone calls, check in on the NBA trade deadline. We got a great hit and run today as well. Lots of stuff to do. Lots of stuff we want to do with you. 1-800-919-3776. It's Super Bowl 59 week, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel makes it easy to place your bets and feel the thrill of every moment. Here's some of the fun bets in the app right now. Saquon to record 25 or more rushing yards in each quarter. Either quarterback to catch a pass. Jalen Hurts to score an octopus. A big man touchdown. Any offensive lineman to score a TD. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/K and bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
In case you didn't know, these young men are driven, quite remarkable, magnificent, and unmistakable. These are the prodigies, the savants, the ones we've been waiting for. And they are not asking for you to pass the baton. They are methodically planning the perfect moment to take it. A new generation of Toyota drivers are here, and they want you to know one thing. You can't stop my drive.
Can I have your attention, please? Yes, I, Wanda Sykes here. You ever think about all the nicknames we have for breasts? Boobs, tatas, the girls, chesticles, bubbies. Heck, you might even have your own nickname for them. And yet, even though they get so much attention, they're still so ignored when it matters most. What's up with that? Well, on February 9th, tune in to see why I'm talking so much about breasts and visit yourattentionplease.com to learn more.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
Welcome back to the show. So we've got about 59 minutes to the NBA trade deadline. 59 minutes. The trade deadline is at 3. We'll give you what we have before we leave the air, but obviously you've got 4 strong hours after that with Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. If anything comes down right at the deadline or is filed with the league office and is made public after that, the guys will be all over it. Alan will help break it down. I'm sure they'll have guests as well. So the trade deadline is at 3 p.m. Eastern. Now, for someone who's done a talk show now, this is my 23rd year, and, you know, been in sports, let's see, this will be my 34th year with the Yankees coming up, and then 5 years covering them. So we're closing in on 40 years of my life covering sports, and before that, being a kid who absolutely adored sports. Sometimes sports makes me sick. They make me sick. The things that go on, I mean, they make it hard to be a fan. They make it hard to embrace the sport. And what I'm talking about, and I think you all know what I'm talking about, is a guy who quit on his team. He quit on his team. Gets handsomely rewarded. Jimmy Butler, who's a heck of a player, quit on the Miami Heat. There's no other way to put it. He quit on them. He wanted to be traded to Phoenix, and he quit on them. This guy was getting paid $50 million this year and had a player option for next year at $52 million. And because Pat Riley wouldn't give him an extension, I shouldn't even say essentially quit. He quit on his team. He got suspended twice. Hopefully, he will never get paid the money that he was suspended. I'm sure he'll appeal, and he might get some of it back, if not all of it, which would mean that he essentially quit on his team and got a paid vacation. But the Heat were in a bad spot. He is an asset because he still can play. And if they just told him, as I would have, and why I'd be a bad GM, you're not going to play for us and you're not going to play hard, you could sit in the corner and rot, your career is over. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. So, that being said, they didn't do that because they didn't want to give away an asset, which I understand. So he ends up getting traded to the Golden State Warriors, essentially for Andrew Wiggins. It's a convoluted trade, and that's not even the point of what we're talking about. And this all came down last night. And he agreed not to pick up his player option next year. And then Golden State gave him a 2-year, $121 million deal. So he got rewarded for being a bad guy. He got rewarded for being a bad guy. He got $60.5 million in each of the next 2 years because he quit on his team and refused to play. How does that make you love your sport? How? How does it not make you sick to your stomach? How? Shouldn't there be some kind of ramification if you just rolled over and wouldn't play when you had a signed contract to play? But now the Warriors could say, he didn't do it to us, but he will. Look at his track record. He's done it every place he's been. He did it with Chicago. He did it with Minnesota. And he did it with Miami. And I love the narrative. And Frank Isola, our good friend who comes on with us all the time, they call him Playoff Jimmy. He's never won a title. Yeah, he's gone to the finals. He's never won a title. Playoff Jimmy. So a lesson to the kids that are sports fans right now. Quit on your team and get what you want. That's essentially it. Quit on your team and get what you want. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It leaves such a bad taste in your mouth. Now, this trade just came down. It's a pretty good trade for the Cavs. The Atlanta Hawks trading forward DeAndre Hunter to the Cavaliers for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, and 3 second-round picks and 2 swaps, according to Sham Charania of ESPN. So pretty good deal as the Cavaliers loading up for their playoff run. Yesterday, the Lakers continued what essentially is one of their most consequential weeks. They acquired Mark Williams, the center, in a trade with the Hornets. Now, ironically enough, that's what Anthony Davis wanted. Anthony Davis wanted him to get a real center so he could play in the 4. Now, he'll play in the 4 for the Mavs, but he was playing center for the Lakers, so they wanted a real center, and he got a real center. And you know why they were able to do it? Because the Dallas Mavericks allowed themselves to get ripped off in the deal for Luka. They took one of the first-round draft picks that the Lakers were able to trade, and they let them retain the 2031 deal, or first-round pick. They also should have asked for Dalton Connect. They didn't. So the Lakers got Luka Doncic for essentially nothing. So now what they did was they took Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish, the 2031 unprotected first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap. They traded to the Hornets for Mark Williams, a legitimate center. So a lot of people said that, the Lakers aren't going to try to win a championship, after making the trade for Luka. This is a move for down the road. Well, think about it, though. Why can't they compete? If Doncic comes back at a really high level, LeBron keeps playing at the level that he's playing, now you got a legitimate center in Mark Williams, who averaged 16 points and 9.8 rebounds for the Hornets this year and shot 59.7% from the field. He's only 23 years old. So he's going to be progressing on the same timeline as the 25-year-old Luka Doncic. Think about it. That's a really good trade for the Lakers, and the only reason they were allowed to make it is because Dallas went soft and didn't demand the other assets from the Lakers. You mean to tell me that Rob Pelinka would have said, no way, we're not making this trade if Dallas demanded 2 first-round draft picks? Again, I remind everybody, the Nets get 5 first-round draft picks from the Knicks for Mikal Bridges. 5. Bridges is a good player. Iron Man, plays all the time. Most minutes in the NBA so far this year. Has never missed a game. Nice player. 5 picks. Luka Doncic is one of the top 3 players in the NBA. 1 pick. And Anthony Davis. 1 pick. Make it make sense. Please, make it make sense. So that's what we're looking at. Trade deadline is now 41 minutes away. No, 51 minutes. My math is bad. The Knicks still hovering around. There's reports out there that many, many teams are checking in with Phoenix about the availability of Kevin Durant. Durant did not want to go to Golden State, and that's why Golden State pivoted and traded for Jimmy Butler and rewarded Jimmy Butler for being a malcontent. Amazing. Just amazing. Suns did make a deal. They traded Nurkic to the Hornets for Cody Martin. So the Suns trying to see what they could do with the available assets they have. Bradley Beal. By the way, there's 2 players in the NBA. 2 players in the NBA with rock-solid no-trade clauses. LeBron James and Bradley Beal. And the fact that Beal refuses to be traded by the Suns, that's what's forcing them to consider trading Kevin Durant. And they could have traded Kevin Durant to the Warriors, but they acceded to his wishes that he didn't want to go, which is a good move because it shows other players that, they treat their players with respect. And Durant certainly demands that respect. He's 35 years old. He's an NBA legend. He didn't want to go. Didn't want to go back to Golden State. But the NBA is shrewd because in their CBA, they make it almost impossible for a player to get a no-trade clause in their contract. You have to be on a team a certain amount of years. You have to be in the NBA a certain amount of years. And most players don't reach that level. LeBron and Bradley Beal are the only 2 players. That's why there is a lot of movement. That's why you could trade an Anthony Davis. That's why you can trade a Luka Doncic. Because nobody has the right to say no. Now, one other thing. Sometimes people say things that are so dumb. So dumb. Dennis Schroeder came out yesterday and said that being a player in the NBA, it's like modern day slavery. Come back to me, Dennis. Okay? The players in the NBA are making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And if they get traded to another team, those are rules of engagement. It's the rules of engagement in all sports. Don't ever compare anything to slavery. People didn't get paid. They could get killed. They could be sent to another plantation. They didn't have any rights. You know what rights you have, Dennis? If you don't want to be traded, walk away and say, I don't want to play basketball anymore. Slaves couldn't do that. To say this is modern-day slavery, it's an insult to your mindset, and it's an insult to generations of people that actually did suffer from slavery. I mean, what a moronic statement to make, modern slavery. It happens in all walks of life. And when you sign up to make, I don't know, $10, $20 million to come off the bench and play for an NBA team, they want to trade you to another team, you can walk away and retire. Slaves didn't have that option. It's a stupid thing to say. And when players say stuff like that, and Jimmy Butler does what he does and then gets rewarded, that right there is why I tell you sometimes it's hard to stay in love with sports. It's hard. It's hard to stay in love with sports. Do these people have minds? Do these people have minds? How do you say something like that? 1-800-919-3776. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Dave in the car. Dave.
Hey, what's up, Michael? You said something earlier which caught my attention because I was having a dispute with someone. They were Met fans. I'm a Yankee fan. I grew up behind Yankee Stadium. And I was like, outside of Soto, so my question to you is, outside of Soto, when you look at the Mets, you look at the money they just spent on one player, and you consider last year's run, everything just kind of lining up perfectly. Health, timing, everything. I warned them. I said, you were reaching for the same glory the Yankees are reaching for. You have this billionaire who owns your team now, but no one's just going to give you anything, and the Dodgers just are way ahead of schedule and just supremely more loaded in their roster. I really don't see the Mets as like a scary team. You got Soto. What else do you have? Lindor? Okay. What else do you have? They're not a frightening team. Am I seeing the wrong thing here? Am I not seeing some hidden gems that they have in their lineup?
Well, I look at it this way, Dave, and I said this earlier. For the amount of money they're spending on payroll, they have a lot of question marks. Their whole pitching staff is a question mark. Their lead pitcher, you don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy and has to be in a 6-man rotation. Their bullpen is a hodgepodge with a great closer, and you wonder how they're going to get to that closer. Their lineup, the first 4, is very, very good. Very good. The bottom 5 or the bottom 4, if you want to say the first 5 is good, a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks. You know what the Mets' biggest negative is? They're playing in a league that is better right now than the American League. The National League has teams that are better. The Dodgers are better. The Braves are better. The Phillies might be better. In their own division, they've got 2 teams that are better. And everybody keeps writing out the fact that, they went to the National League Championship Series last year, which they did. You can't take that away from them. But they had to rally strong just to get the last wild card. Remember all the rainouts with Atlanta and stuff like that? It took till the last day. And then they got hot in the postseason. Can't take it away. They were 3 outs away by being eliminated by the Brewers, but it didn't happen. Then they got through the DS, and they took the Dodgers, the eventual World Championship team, to 6 games. Great year. But it could have been so much different if they stumbled just once down the stretch. So I think they're a playoff contender, but I think there's a lot of question marks, and there's not a sure thing there. There's just not. But I got to be honest with you, as I always am. Dodgers aren't a sure thing either. They're not. Do I think they're a sure thing to make the playoffs? Yes, I do. But to go all the way, anything could happen. You could stub your toe. Or you can go on a run like the Mets did and almost make it to the World Series. So their greatest negative is the league in which they play. If they were in the American League, they'd have a much higher chance to make the playoffs. It's going to be a struggle for them. But I think their lineup is good. I do. I mean, when you have Soto and Lindor and now Alonso, and you hope that Vientos has a good second year as well, that's impressive. But you can't be impressed with their starting rotation. You can't. And you can't be impressed with their bullpen. They have a really good manager, and that's going to help. And they seem to get the most out of their pitchers. Jeremy Hefner is a great pitching coach. We'll see. We'll see. 1-800-919-3776. We go to Tommy in Tennessee. Tommy.
Michael, good to talk to you. I just want to make a clarification. Jimmy Butler was going to make $52 million. He had that option to get the $52 million. Now he's going to make the $60 with Golden State. But remember in Florida they don't have an income tax, so he's going to make less. He's probably going to make less money with in California with their taxes. So he's not really making $60 million. He's probably going to make, if not less, if not the same, with as before.
Well, the state tax, the state income tax in California is, I think, 14%, a little bit more than that. So he'll get taxed at that, and there's no state income tax in Florida. But I mean, you're being a little bit picayune on this. He got $121 million. And they could structure it in a way where he's living in Florida. It could be in a bonus. There's ways to circumvent the full owner's reach of a tax. Look at what Ohtani's done. Deferring money. So there's ways to do that. Okay, so let's say he gets taxed and it still comes down to $52 million. Or let's say he was going to take home, I don't know. I'm not a math major, but it's about the same he's going to take it home. He got another year put on his contract for what? For doing what? For quitting on his team? So you're going to sit there and get cute about the tax in California that he ends up losing. No, he doesn't end up losing. He gets an extra year that he didn't have, all for sitting out. Because he sat out, became a malcontent. The Spoelstra couldn't deal with him. Riley couldn't deal with him. And they had to end up moving him. And he gets rewarded with an extra year on his contract. Yay. Great look. Let's go to Dave in Westchester. Dave.
Hey, happy birthday, Mike. I'm going to comment on Pete Alonso, but I want to tell you, you're 1,000% correct about Butler. I would let the guy rot there. But anyways, about Alonso, I think that what's his name, Steve Cohen, is not going to lose one iota of sleep at all. You got to stop with the money. There's a lot of players in sports who get overpaid, and they shouldn't get overpaid. What's the difference between $23 million and $30 million? Big deal. Are the Mets a better team today, or were they a better team yesterday? They're a better team today.
They're a better
and
team today.
You can't keep saying if he didn't hit the home run. But he did. Nobody's saying, I'm not comparing. Don't get this twisted. Nobody's saying if Jeter didn't make the flip play, if Jeter didn't hit Mr. November. But he did. Alonso did hit the home run. Alonso did hit 4 home runs in the playoffs. He did that. Terrible regular season or awful, whatever you want to call it. What if he hits 52 home runs this year? You don't think he'll sign again? They'll put him at DH and they'll give Vladimir Guerrero. Steve Cohen could care less about $7 million.
Well, okay. Dave, you bring up a good point because you have a billionaire owner. But Dave, wait a minute. My point is this: what happens? Okay. Why'd you play hardball with him then? $68 million for 3 years. If money means nothing, why'd we play this game with him? Why?
They probably played the game because they really didn't want him. Cohen caved in because he's a great guy. The fans want him. And what did they get Soto for? They got Soto and did all this stuff and gave him all this money for what? Just so they can lose? They're a better team. Nobody's giving tomorrow. Nobody knows if we're going to be here tomorrow. Who knows what Soto's going to do 8 years from now? The people are worrying about the future is now, this year. The Mets don't have a good chance at all of getting to the World Series. They're not playing the Three Stooges like the Yankees are. The Yankees are in the World Series right now, okay, unless some crazy things happen. The Mets have 4 teams that are better than them. Forget the Dodgers. There's 4 teams other than the Dodgers better than the Mets. All I know is they're a better team today than they were yesterday, and everybody's happy. Alonso's happy. Boras is happy. Cohen is happy. He might not tell you that, but Cohen is happy. Everybody's happy.
But I'll tell you this, though, Dave. I mean, do you really – I do wonder if Alonso's happy. 2 years ago, he turned down $158. So far, he has gotten back $50.5 million of that. And has 5 more years to make up $108 million. You think he's going to do it? So I don't know if Alonso's happy. Yeah, he can save some face by saying he has the highest average annual value of any first baseman in the game. But it's a 1-year deal. That's where the Mets won. And the $30 million is where Alonso won. And if money doesn't mean anything, then what was the whole purpose during the whole offseason? They wanted to get under the $301 million threshold. If money doesn't mean anything. Again, Steve Cohen is a really bright man. You think he wants to set fire to $150 million each year? I think there's an urgency for him. He's 68 years old. And he said that, in 5 years he's going to win 1 or 2 World Series. It hasn't happened. I think that money means less to him than it does to other owners because he's got a truckload of money. But just remember one thing, Met fans. Just remember one thing. He is paying for this team out of his pocket, not from the revenues that the Mets generate. He doesn't have a Yes Network. He doesn't own SNY. He does not own SNY. So if you believe the stuff that comes out, in the past 2 years, he lost close to $150 million out of his personal fortune. At some point, it's going to be enough is enough. I mean, David Stearns was hired because he's clever. He knows how to build a team. He doesn't have to pay top dollar for everybody. Then they went out and got Soto, which I think you put all those things aside and say Soto is a special generational player. So, yeah, we're going to go above and beyond what we want. But still, you're sitting there looking at a $230 million payroll. How's that good? When there's so many holes on the team. So I know what Dave is saying. Are they better today than they were yesterday? Absolutely they are, because they needed a presence in the lineup. But by playing hardball, you're spending more money. This is from Andy Martino, not from Michael Kay. You went out and got Minter. You went out and got Winker. You got several people where you spent the Pete Alonso money. And then all of a sudden you go, well, you know what? Let's bring Pete Alonso back. So you got those players, and now your payroll is well over the Cohen tax. That's not managing your money the right way. It's not. And you can say that about the team across the town, too. Having Marcus Stroman make $18 million as your 6th starter is not managing your money right. Having DJ LeMahieu for 2 more years at $15 million a year, not managing your money right. It's not. You can't have dead weight like that. And as I said the other day, the Yankees signed Tim Hill, which was a smart move. That gives them the one lefty they need in the bullpen. So their bullpen is complete. It's going to be a force. It will be a force for them. But it took them over the Cohen tax. That'll be the third year. They're a third-year repeater. Third year in a row, they're over the final luxury threshold tax. Well, now you can't sit there and go, well, because of all the terrible things that happen when you go over the tax and draft picks and foreign international money signing, now that's out. You've passed the tax. So unless the Yankees plan to get under it again, you shouldn't be $2 million over the tax. You should be $20 million over the tax. Go out and get a third baseman then. It's all about managing funds. The Mets didn't manage their funds right, and right now with the Yankees over the Cohen tax, which they said they didn't want to be over for the third year in a row, they have not managed them right either. If they could somehow trade Stroman and get under that tax, then I have nothing to say. But if you're $2 million over the tax this year and you go into the season with DJ LeMahieu, Oswaldo Peraza, or Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza as one of your third basemen, then you haven't managed your payroll the right way. You can't. You haven't. Hey, come out to see Don Hahn and Rosenberg live tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. from the Tap Room in Rockville Center, Long Island, for a special countdown to kickoff broadcast to get you ready for the big game. We're bringing the big game experience to you at the Tap Room, steps from the LIRR station in Rockville Center. It's brought to you by Tullamore Dew, Irish Whiskey, Sloman Security, and Security Dodge. Shop 24/7 at securitydodge.com during their President's Day sales event. When we come back, more of your phone calls. You got a nice hit and run planned as well. 1-800-919-3776. Remember, it's how it works. I'm not doing the show alone. I'm doing it with you, so it's your chance to be a co-host. All you have to do is dial in 1-800-919-3776. Got it? Good. FanDuel Kick of Destiny is happening Sunday, and this time it's every Manning for himself. This Super Bowl II legends will take the field in the sudden death field goal showdown. Peyton versus Eli, live from New Orleans. One kick to claim ultimate family bragging rights. Who's going to rise to the moment? Pick your winner now in the FanDuel app, and if you back the right brother, you'll earn a share of $10 million in bonus bets. It's the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3. Make your free pick, and don't forget to tune in to watch the showdown live during the Super Bowl 59 pregame show, which will be on Fox at 3 p.m. May the best Manning win. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/K and bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. 21 plus and physically present in New York. No purchase necessary. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
TaxAct knows filing your taxes can be complicated, and that's why we have live experts to help you with any questions. They can hold your hand through the process beginning to end. Metaphorically, of course. I mean, they can't actually hold your hand in person. I suppose you could hold your computer mouse while you chat with the expert about capital gains or whatever, which is sort of like holding hands. Sorry, point is, our tax experts can make filing easier. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Allo or Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%. Meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. The secret's out. Businesses that want to grow, grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Untuckit uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/network, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/network to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/network.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Michael K. Show. We go till 3, and that is the NBA trade deadline. At that time, it'll be Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. They'll break down anything that happens right at the trade deadline or is announced after the 3 o'clock deadline. So here's a positive that the Mets get by signing Alonso. Now the players that were going to compete maybe for third base with Vientos moving over to first become trade bait. Maybe you could trade Beatty. Maybe you could trade Acuna. Maybe you could trade Mauricio because the Padres are looking to trade Dylan Cease. If you get Dylan Cease, all of a sudden that Met rotation gets a lot better, a lot deeper. And since you've gone past the Cohen tax, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you add another $20 million, another $25 million. Not at all. 1-800-919-3776. So that could be an offshoot of what we're talking about here. So there are a lot of ramifications to it. So let me repeat what I've been saying all day. It's hard to come down on one side of, yay, this is great, or boo, this is negative. Now, if you're a Met fan, you're going to come down on the side of, yay, I get it, I understand it. And I see the stuff on social media. I'm the pariah. I'm Yankee. But whatever the case may be, I think if you trust me and if you're listening to the show and you've listened for 23 years, I'm eminently fair. Eminently fair. $30 million is a massive overpay for the guy that you valued at 23. But getting him for 1 year is a big victory for the Mets. This is a guy that went into spring training looking for a long-term contract. The Mets held their ground. They held their ground on the length of deal. They did not hold their ground on the contract value. And that's okay. Because, again, with Cohen's money, if they overpaid him by $7 or $8 million, that's fine. That's fine. But it's still a lot. He's the highest paid first baseman in the game. And I told you the other first baseman, he's not in their class. He's not in their class. He is not Vlad. He is not Freeman. He's not Harper. He's not Matt Olson. I think he is better than Christian Walker, totally. Not as a defender, but overall, I think he's much better than Christian Walker, who makes 20. So Alonso's going to make 30. Vlad makes 28.5. Harper makes 27.5. Freeman 27. Matt Olson 22. And Christian Walker 20. 1-800-919-3776. So 1 year, great, something to celebrate. 30 million, bad, not something to celebrate. Not. A massive overpay. And if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. It's the Mets that have to overpay him. As long as it doesn't impact what you do down the line. And I don't think it will. Now, the DJ LeMahieu contract is impacting what the Yankees do. That makes it a bad contract. It's impacting. If the Yankees didn't have that $15 million on their payroll, they'd have a better third baseman. The Marcus Stroman contract's a bad contract because it impacts what the Yankees are doing. They're not going to overspend to outspend that bad deal. So either, if you didn't have LeMahieu and you didn't have Stroman, think about it. You'd have $32 million more to spend. That's why you always have to be careful. Long-term contracts, contracts that fans goad you into, which is what the LeMahieu contract was, and also amortizing the contract by spreading it out over a number of years. So DJ LeMahieu, because the Yankees were about AAV, average annual contract, they didn't give him $90 million for 4. They gave him $90 million for 6. Last year was a bust. That was the 4th year of the contract. And if he doesn't get healthy and doesn't get right, then years 5 and 6, a bust too. And they still affect your payroll. So, yeah, you spread out the AAV, but in the last 2 years, you went over the Cohen tax anyway. And giving Marcus $18 million a year, essentially for 3 years, when he's the 6th starter and could not get off of the bullpen bench during the playoffs. One series he wasn't even on the roster. That's a bad contract. So bad contracts are really bad when they impact what you do moving forward. The Alonso contract, I don't think, is going to impact the Mets moving forward because it's just for 1 year. Now you wonder, 9 years into the Soto contract, will that impact what the Mets are doing? At that time, Steve Cohen is going to be 77 years old. He's going to have a different mindset about how much money he wants to spend on his team. Those are the contracts that impact the way you do business. So a 1 year deal for Alonso will not. And you had to do the Soto deal. You had to. And there were other teams that were waiting in line to give him the same amount of money, Yankees included. So you were not the only one. You did not go out of your mind to do that. So 1 year good, 30 million bad. Let's go to Pete in Fort Rockaway. Pete.
Everything you just said about contracts is 100% correct. The only thing I'd say different with you is that this is the worst contract the Mets have ever made. And I'm just waiting to see what excuse Met fans will come up with this year, that he got hit by Charlie Morton or that he went down to visit Cespedes and he fell off a water buffalo, or what excuse they'll think when Pete hits 217, has 22 home runs, and they're trying to trade him at the trading deadline. It is a terrible contract for a quadruple A player.
Well, no,
that's all I have to say.
I don't agree. He's a good player. He's not a great player, but he's a good player. I mean, this guy hit 53 home runs. This guy plays all the time. He played every game last year. So I don't think it's a terrible contract. A 1 year contract for whatever price can't be a terrible contract. Owners in baseball would sell percentages of their team if they could get players to play on 1 year deals. Because if it's a mistake, you're out of it. It can't even come close to being a bad contract. It's an overpay, but it's not a bad contract because it's just 1 year. Now, if it was a 3 year, $90 million deal, then it was an awful contract. But 1 year, $30 million, that's not awful. Pete, I respectfully disagree. Let's go to Jose in Connecticut. Jose.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
And like the last guy, man, like this is just kind of why I called. I just felt like I felt you were a little short-sighted, although I'll give you credit. I feel like as you're going on, I don't know, I'm not saying you're coming around, but you're even saying like Cohen operates different than the Yankees, right? And for him, because I've done consulting for these hedge funds, the way he's thinking is, he's thinking long-term, but also the risk-reward. It's $30 million is nothing to him, but even if Pete is not great and opts out, he can do it like he did to Verlander and did to Scherzer. He can eat up that 1 year, pick up, even if he picks up, regular, okay prospects. It's like a low-risk, high-reward, right? So it's only 1 year. I would rather pay a little more for 1 year than 3 years, right? Because now you're stuck with Pete for 2 years if he stinks. So I just feel like people need to relax. Like you said, we're better today than we were yesterday. And also now it gives those young guys less pressure to step up, because if we miss Pete, right now we have Mauricio got to step up, or Beatty. Now we can kind of give them time to see if they're going to be good, if they'll be the future first baseman, or do we go after Vlad? So I just felt like it's not as big a deal because it's only 1 year. If it was 3 years, then I'm with you,
I think I'm in lockstep with you, and I would tell you what it does is turn those young players into trade bait. Now Stearns has players to maneuver with, because I don't think Beatty, if Viento's a real deal, Beatty's never going to really get a shot at third base. I don't think you don't want to move Vientos to first, because I think next year you're probably making a run at Vlad Guerrero. So, I mean, now you've got players that are repetitive at positions that you already have filled. And because of that, you can make deals for a guy like Dylan Cease. Let's go to Omar in East Brunswick.
Hey, Michael, great show so far today.
Thank you, man.
So, I just wanted to say I really like this contract for the Mets. What I like most about it is that they didn't hinder themselves in the future. They can still go after Vlad Jr. if they want. I don't know if they could probably go for him at the trade deadline still if we have Pete, but, I mean, like I said, it's still, if we want to go after him next offseason, I don't think this contract is going to hinder us from doing that. And then I don't know if you saw what Puma said, but Puma said that he aired his frustration with, like, Steve Cohen and all that. And I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, like, you should be frustrated with yourself, not with how you thought the Mets were going to pay you, because this is a business at the end of the day. Like, yes, you are big for the Mets, correct? But, I mean,
well, I think you bring up a good point, Omar. He's probably frustrated at himself. I mean, $150 million guaranteed dollars, and it wasn't good enough for him. He dreamed bigger dreams, and he fired his agent and hired Scott Boras because he wanted to have more. So the first 2 years of that 7-year deal, he made $20.5 last year, $30 this year, so that's $50.5 million. So he's got to come up with $107.5 million over the next 5 years as he becomes an older player. And God forbid, if an injury or something like that, 158, a sure thing. Now he's almost singing for a supper every single year. Every single year. I think he's frustrated himself. He can't be frustrated at the Mets. How could he be frustrated at the Mets? They're trying to run their team the way they think is the best way to run their team, and they value players at certain numbers. And the Mets went way above the number they valued him at because he's Pete Alonso and because the fans love him and because of the fact Steve Cohen likes him. That's it. If he wasn't a fan favorite and wasn't a lifelong Met, there's no way he'd get $30 million from the Mets. And we had Andy Martino on. He said, there's rumors out there was another team that was willing to pay him $30 million a year. I want to hear that team. I want to hear the team that valued Pete at $30 million a year. He has more value to the Mets than he does to any other team. Any other team. You mean to tell me that if the Toronto Blue Jays offered him $90 million for 3 years, he took one for $30? If he did that, then he should be celebrated as the all-time altruistic Met that left so much money on the table just to be a Met. But then the flip side of that is he also turned down $158 million from the Mets. So it is a business. So you can't get mad at the Mets for playing it as a business because 2 years ago, you played it as a business as well. You can't get mad. It's a business both ways, isn't it? We'll come back, play a little hit and run, maybe the off season, but every season is Bigelow tea season. You know I'm picky about what I drink, especially on days I have a show. One of the first things I do each day is reach for a mug full of Bigelow tea. I love the different flavor options, and it's perfect for someone who makes his living behind a microphone. Want to know what keeps me going? Look no further than my cup of Bigelow tea next to me in the studio. So grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. Bigelow tea, the official hot tea of the New York Yankees.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod at checkout.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with sheets that feel breathable to sleep in. You'll experience the purest softness on night one and feel your sheets get even softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code SPORTS15. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. This is Hit and Run.
Oh, yeah, you know the rules, right? You know the rules. Quick hits, things on my mind that we won't want to dedicate a whole segment to. Interesting thing. With the New York Jets. So they had the 33rd team help them in their search for a coach and a GM. And part of the 33rd team with Mike Tannenbaum was former Vikings general manager Rick Spielman. Spielman now, after assisting them in finding a GM and a coach, has now been hired full-time with the Jets. He'll be a senior football advisor. He announced that today. On his CBS Sports podcast. Little odd. I thought that the way it was going with all the interviews that Tannenbaum would end up being the guy who ends up being the Jets GM, but he doesn't. But Spielman essentially replaces Phil Savage with the Jets, who's going to remain with the Jets as a consultant, but Spielman will be with the Jets. It's going to be interesting to see. So 2 guys that he got hired, he's going to be the senior football advisor. Jason Dominguez has a new number, and it tells you what the organization thinks of him. Last year, the number 24 belonged to Alex Verdugo. This year, Jason Dominguez is going to have number 24. And I've always thought number 24 was a number that never was embraced too much in Yankee history. Now, you had Tino Martinez, who wore that number proudly and did great things with it and won championships. But 24 to me is like a prime number that's waiting to be snatched by an all-time generational Yankee player. Could it be Dominguez? A little too early to tell. But when they give out numbers in the Yankee universe, there is a method to their madness. Now, they give Volpe 11 because they think Volpe is going to be there for a long time. They give Dominguez 24 because they think Dominguez is going to be there a long time. All right, Fred and Wilma Flintstone, did you know that they were the first couple to be shown in bed together on primetime television? How about that for Fred and Wilma? Thought you'd like that. Hey, I saw this. This is another hit and run. Mark Sanchez. This is a great stat. Mark Sanchez, former Jets quarterback, has more playoff wins than Lamar, Dak, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, and Kirk Cousins combined. And all people talk about with poor Mark Sanchez is, the butt fumble and things like that. More playoff wins combined as a quarterback than those great players that I just mentioned. All right, so the other day, I ripped on the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, for not allowing the Baseball Writers Association to make all of their votes public. The BBWA actually voted to make them all public, and then the Baseball Hall of Fame stepped in and said, no, we don't want you to do that. And I found that curious, so I started to make some phone calls. And I'm a reasonable person, always have been, and they actually gave me some clarity with the several phone calls that I made. And here's what it comes down to. The Hall wants every voter to be able to vote as they wish without fear of retribution. If they wish to be public, that's great. And a huge majority does, in fact, do that. But the Hall is worried that in today's society, having a lynch mob show up at someone's house or threaten them online is a very real possibility, and it's not something that the Hall of Fame Board of Directors is comfortable with. You know what? I kind of understand it. But there's a part of me that thinks if you make a vote, you should show your work and explain your vote. And if you don't want to be tormented, then you shouldn't vote. If you're afraid that your vote is going to bring hatred and actually imperil your safety, then don't accept the vote. Just don't vote. But I do understand the Hall of Fame's thinking. I didn't know why they were going that. They're just trying to save people. Because we do know that in this society, we have some strange people that think a little bit too strongly about sports. And let's say there's a Mariner fan out there that can't believe that person A didn't vote for Ichiro. And, they start doxing his house or whatever the case may be. Same thing with a Yankee fan with Derek Jeter not getting that vote. The Hall of Fame wants to avoid that. Ohio State, they go from having Ryan Day coaching for his job to giving him a 7-year deal worth $12.5 million a year. $12.5 million a year for Ryan Day. And after he lost to Michigan, it looked like his job was hanging in the balance. This is an interesting stat from Paul Hembekides of ESPN. This Eagles team had 3,610 passing yards, and they have 3,731 rushing yards. So Paul looked it up. Super Bowl champs with more rushing yards than passing yards. The last time a team won the Super Bowl and had that statistic, you have to go back to 1975, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before that, the 1974 Steelers. Before that, the 1973 Dolphins. And before that, the 1972 Dolphins. That's it. 4 teams in the history of the Super Bowl, 58 previous Super Bowls, have had more yards rushing than passing. So the Eagles are trying to do something that hasn't been done since 1975. The NBA getting back at the NFL. You know, the NFL kind of has hijacked Christmas Day from the NBA. You know, Christmas Day was the NBA's thing. And now the NFL is selling Christmas Day games on streaming services and takes a lot of the glitter and the glamour away from the NBA. Well, the NBA having the trade deadline the week of the Super Bowl has taken a lot of publicity away from football. So maybe that's their way to get back. Happy birthday to Babe Ruth. He would have been 130 years old today. The NFLPA arguing they will never, ever play 18 games. The constituency doesn't want it. They think it's dangerous. Let me let you in on a little secret. They will play 18 games. It's all negotiating. The players will sacrifice their bodies. They do every single game anyway. They will end up playing 18 games, and they'll get something for it. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, in the next 2 or 3 years, but I guarantee you the NFL will have an 18-game season. And I guarantee you as the trade deadline ticks away, we've got 5 more minutes, Don Hahn and Rosenberg will be all over it. Their show starts in moments right here on 880 ESPN. So, in the words of Billy Joel, life is a series of hellos and goodbyes. I'm afraid it's time for goodbye again. See everybody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
I don't just stand on business. I live it. 24/7. Because you don't become a young entrepreneur by staying stagnant. Whether I'm chasing deals, networking, or taking calls from behind the wheel of my Toyota Crown, I'm always in motion. You may think launching a successful startup is enough to be satisfied, but me, I'm just getting started. It's a new day at Toyota, led by a new generation of drivers. And we want you to know one thing. You can't stop my drive. Toyota, let's go places.